But
Now move back a bit, because you're so big.
well, you know.
But if I move, I'll be a bit forwards.
A bit forwards.
Yeah, and we'll trick the viewers so they think
like we're in the same
size.
Yeah.
If you're a competitive cyclist, then power to weight is a very important thing, and you can make some really good gains in performance just by dropping a few pounds. But how can you do it safely and make sure you don't lose any power in the process? In today's video, I'm sitting down with Will Girling, nutritionist for EF Pro Cycling and a host of other World Tour pros, to find out some of the basics and the methods that he uses to get his athletes to drop weight when they need to most. As usual, any questions that you have for Will, please put them in the comment section down below as you watch the video, and he'll do his best to answer them, and I hope you enjoy today's video. Losing weight without losing power on the bike. Is that possible?
Yes, it's possible.
How do you go about doing it? Would you approach it in the same way as someone who goes to the gym a lot and wants to get really lean? Or do you have to treat it a bit more sensitively because of the taxing efforts that cyclists go through?
Everything that we do, the amount of deficit and the way that cyclists do it need to be different, or in any kind of endurance athlete, triathlon, marathon runners, etc., because the volume and demand for their sessions is greater. A gym goer is not going to go to the gym and train for 4 hours with high intensity efforts for 20 minutes every hour or something like this. You know, some people are going to be going out on the weekend with really hard sessions, and the level of deficit needs to be smaller so they can still manage to perform the training that they're doing. So their weekly loss should be relative to that, and understand that it's going to be a bit slower if they want to maintain performance and not lose muscle mass. Because the more facets you add into the mix and bowl or whatever you want to call it is going to make it harder. If you just want fat loss, that's easy because you can sacrifice certain feelings of energy and fullness and so on. But if you want to gain watts, like total FTP, gain watts per kilo and lose fat mass and not any muscle mass, then suddenly we've got a whole different array of things that we need to think about.
Does that mean you have to track calories?
You don't have to track calories, no, but the majority of people don't understand what's in food that they're having and have context about how much they should be having. And if you don't look at the data and the amount of people also that after a few weeks, let's say 1 month, 2 months, so on, they start going, I'm not losing any weight anymore and I'm doing the same thing. If they're not tracking anything, how do they actually know? Because there's loads of subconscious that goes on. Like, we know that there's studies that look at non-exercise activity, so the step count. And as people reduce calories, over a period of time their step count reduces because their body is slowing down in, not metabolism, but it's just trying to get us to not move as much. So if you're not tracking your step count, then you could actually start off doing 15,000 steps at the beginning, and then 3 months down the line you could be only doing 5, and that's already changed your calorie deficit and you could stop losing weight.
How much of a calorie deficit is it safe to run at, and when do you start seeing negative impacts on your performance?
Yeah, that's a great question. So obviously, as you said at the beginning, we need to be in a calorie deficit if we want to lose body fat. You have to be. There's no two ways around it. The amount of deficit can vary, but anything over 1,000 calories is going to be a definite no. The level of which you can vary over a week, anything between obviously 200-300 calories up to maybe 700 calories or something like this, depending on the day and how it works out.
So there are going to be guys out there who don't want to track their calories.
Yeah, for sure.
And they might not have been riding for that long and that experience with nutrition. Is there any foods that you can recommend or meals that you can recommend as a basic guideline that people should try and stick to if they're going from an unhealthy diet to start with to, I want to get fit and healthy and lose a little bit of weight as well while riding?
If we're going to be ambiguous and more just generalized with it, people want to be having protein at every meal. Regular protein intakes, and that's only 3 meals and a snack or something like this through a day. It could be post-workout, it could be, a pre-bed snack or something like this. I would have protein at every sitting because that's going to improve recovery, it's going to increase your potential to gain lean muscle mass, and it's going to preserve lean muscle mass in a calorie deficit. The amount of people that don't have 5 a day, fruit and veg, I'm serious.
So basic.
It's so basic, honestly. The amount of food diaries I look at, that are like, and they ask me what's wrong with it. I'm like, well, first off, you've not got no fruit and veg in it.
That's what the government guidelines recommend here in the UK. Is 5 fruits and veg actually enough for most people?
Well, no, so that 5 fruit and veg, this is what's crazy about it. 5 fruit and veg for a sedentary, everyday individual.
Okay.
Alright, so that's not even a high exercising...
That's not cyclists.
That's not cyclists, not high exercising individuals that are also in a calorie deficit, already compromising recovery.
Yeah.
And they're not getting 5 a day.
Okay.
Alright? So, if you're not getting it, get 5 a day. Yeah? A portion is determined as 80 grams.
You can't just eat one
grape.
Yeah.
No, just not one grape.
Protein for every meal. Get your 5 a day. Anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would put carbohydrates around their training. So if you know you're going to do a turbo session or a long ride, I would look to have some carbohydrates 2 to 4 hours before that session. If you've got time. If you haven't got time and you're obviously doing like a 6 a.m. turbo session or something like this, I would have something very easy digesting 5 to 20 minutes before the start of it.
Does that mean you should avoid carbohydrates, like actively try to avoid them when you are resting and not doing a session?
No, but the amount of carbohydrates someone needs depends on how active they are in their life, how many training sessions they're doing, and their overall calorie requirements. But if you're definitely, the one thing you can definitely say is that they need carbohydrates around their session, both to fuel the session. If it's really long, then over 90 minutes, then they need to be fueling during the session. And then if it was a really big session, then potentially afterwards as well to help recovery. And that's a pretty standard, definite answer you can give someone, that's when they should be having carbohydrate.
Now, so this video isn't a complete information overload, I want to point out now that Will has his own YouTube channel where he goes much more in-depth into these topics. You can also hire him as a personal nutritionist as well. He's a nutritionist for Education First and other World Tour pros. You're available for hire.
I am available for hire.
So go and check his channel out. I'll put it in the description down below. I'm leaving it in. Leaving it in.
It's fine.
We've done this 50 times. I'd like to finish this video by asking you, what are the most common pitfalls people experience when they're trying to lose weight?
The top 4 that we came up with. I came up with, you didn't come up with any.
I came up with them a bit.
First one was that their calorie deficit is just too strong. It's too big, they're not recovering, they're not getting everything they need out of the sessions, so they start to drop power. Whether that's through muscle loss or just not being able to do the sessions. The next one is protein intake isn't high enough. Across the board, vegans included, which is included in the references that they have in Game Changers, you need at least 2 grams per kilogram body weight of protein to preserve lean muscle mass and have recovery in a calorie deficit. Third, not enough carbs. They're not fueling the sessions that they have, so they're not able to, well, what I say a lot, fuel for the work required. That if you are doing high intensity sessions, you're not having any carbohydrates, you're trying to do a low carb diet, you're just not going to be able to do the sessions. And lastly, coming back to the big, massive part of information that we did earlier, is not tailoring calories around the sessions. If you're doing more, you need to eat more. If you're doing less, you can eat less. And if you do that over your week, you'll find you'll be able to manage recovering easier and losing body fat more easily, rather than having the same calories every single day, even though training is going like this, you're eating the same, which just doesn't make sense. We were talking about it earlier, weren't we, where we were saying, and this is something I see a lot with people, that if you weigh yourself every day over a week, that if your weight is spiking up and down a lot, it can mean that you're not having the right amount of calories for the right amount of activity that you're doing. And let's say, oh, I really want to lose body fat, I'm going to start dieting, I put a massive deficit in, I go out and do 2 hours on the bike, and you're still only having like 2,000 calories or something. Next day your weight goes down really drastically because you're empty and you're depleted. And then suddenly that next day, that's when you start to feel really hungry. And that might be a day when you got a rest day. And suddenly you eat loads because you're like, I'm so hungry, you eat loads. And then the day after, your weight comes up massively. And you're like, well, fuck, my weight's gone up. I'm going to put a really strong deficit in again, but you're going to go and ride again. So suddenly the weight goes down really drastically, and you end up in this up and down cycle of eating on the wrong days for the activity you're doing. And your weight is just going all over the place. And people just, get really confused by it and worried by it as well.
Sounds very familiar. You're You're sweating.
I fucking am sweating. It's so hot in here.
I'm alright, I'm going to jump on.
Really?
Yeah. Now a quick message to sign today's video off. My good friends Jimmy and Emily from Attacus released their winter kit yesterday, day before yesterday. It's sold out completely, so this wicked orange or yellow, whatever colour this is, jacket has unfortunately sold out. But they're doing a pre-order. They're restocking the men's orange jacket, the slightly thinner long sleeve, and the men's tights as well, because all of that sold out. So they're going to be doing a pre-order on their website. I'll put a link down below to that if you want to reserve your size, which is live until Monday at 2 PM UK time. As always, really hope you enjoyed today's video. Please like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more videos featuring Will, because we filmed a few, and I'll see you guys soon.